Hi everyone, Niall here. Welcome back to the 8020 BIM channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about my preferred way of automating outputs from Revit, such as PDFs, DWGs, DWFXs, NWCs, IFC formats, the whole spectrum, so that you both have your file name and number and revision automatically input against all of those outputs. So a lot of junior to intermediate users tend to do a mass print or batch plot as such, via something like bullzip or qpdf or something along those lines. And what ends up happening is typically they have to go and manually input all the information afterwards for the drawing name, number, and revision. And there are actually means using various add-ins that are freely available to automate this entire process so that you don't have to waste, you know, an hour or two on the day of issuance just getting all this information compiled correctly, okay? Outside of that, I'm also going to talk to you about how to input the revisions on sheets en masse, basically. So again, you can just establish your revision at the start of the project or the start of your day's work or whatever, what have you, and then you can apply it to all sheets across the models. Okay. So in order to establish all of this, we're going to use two plugins. Excuse me, my son was messing with my boom arm and it's never been right since. But what we're going to do is we're going to use two different add-ins to establish this workflow. I'm going to show you where you can get them, how they function, and basically how you can save yourself a couple of hours every day you have a mass issue to get out. Okay, so I won't delay any further. All the resources for this are going to be compiled below, including the sample model, which is available to download from the Buy Me a Coffee support page. And I'd love to actually see us over on the Discord community page. It's starting to get a lot of traction there. They're a very friendly bunch who are sitting there chatting away and helping each other out. We'd love to have you over there. If you just want to come in, contribute, and ask questions as you like, we'll do our best to help you out. So, as always, I hope you enjoy the content. We're not going to delay any longer. I'm going to get straight into this and show you how it's all done. Okay. So the first thing to note is that you have to go and get the two add-ins. Okay, and there's two add-ins which we're going to utilize for this. There's one called PyRevit, which is created and readily available on GitHub by a man called SM, I believe. Okay. And then another is called the DiRoots ProSheets plugin. Okay. And we're just going to go through where you can get both of these very quickly. I'll leave the links below so that you can just readily access these rather than trying to dig them out through the search engine. Okay. So going to screen share here, I'm just going to open, excuse that tab. I'm just going to open this. Okay. So the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need the PyRevit add-in. Okay. Now this is freely available from GitHub. Okay. And the gentleman who's created his name is Esan, and he does some stellar stuff. You know what I mean? Like he's from the programming side of the industry and visual programming and integration into Revit and stuff. He's bleeding edge, and I aspire to someday be able to understand half of what he talks about. But what he's developed is the PyRevit add-in, and basically this uses the Python shell essentially and Python code to give you more function within Revit. Okay, so if you go to the GitHub link down below, you will see this page here. Okay, and just under whatever is the top section here is saying. So for example, in this instance, it's PyRevit 4.8.8. If you go down just to the assets, you will see that you have the exe there. That's the executable. You can click that, download that, and ensure that Revit is not on or active, or just generally turn off all your Autodesk applications. Run the executable as administrator, have it installed, and then the next time you boot Revit, you should see in your toolbar the PyRevit toolset. Okay. Now, this is a very advanced toolset. There's great things you can do about it. I highly recommend you download this and give it a bit of time to get familiar with it, because there's some functions that are just going to save you time outside of the remit of what I'm going to describe to you today. So I definitely advise it. Okay. Outside of that, then, the second add-in we're going to utilize is the DiRoots ProSheets tool. Okay. And again, this is what's going to actually automate the exporting to PDF, DWG, DXF, all that stuff with the automatic file naming procedure in place. Okay, so you don't have to manually go and edit it afterwards. Okay, so DiRoots, again, just to touch upon, they give out free add-ins as kind of like a gateway to their services for custom add-in creation for companies. But I highly recommend you go ahead, you just go onto this page. Again, it's in link down below. You Select free download here. It'll ask you just for some generic sign up information, and rightfully so. And this will basically tell you when there's updates and stuff to this plugin. You submit, you'll get a little thank you message, and you'll be able to download from there. Unzip the file, install it. It'll ask you for the prerequisite to install a PDF writer called, I think it's PDF 24 Creator. Just allow that, and it'll give you all the versions that you can select to install. 2017 through to 2022, I think. So there's a good remit there, and there's also this donation button here. Okay, with tools like this, please do your best to support the creators. Okay, if you cannot hire them for their own purposes and stuff, because this is a professional organization, please just send them a couple of quid and just say, look, thanks a million, because I guarantee you, if you utilize this workflow and you issue drawings frequently, you are going to save yourself so much time across a couple of months. You wouldn't believe. It's like getting a couple of days back every year. Okay, so make sure to support the creators. Okay, so now that we have the preamble and we've went ahead and downloaded and installed this stuff as administrator, okay, when we open Revit, not only will we have the PyRevit, but we will also have the DiRoots toolbar. Okay, and you can see that we have ProSheets there. Okay, and these are the two tools that we need to use in order to establish this workflow. So now I'm going to go into showing you how I, first of all, place all the revisions across all of our sheets at once. So in order to apply revisions across all sheets at once, the first thing we're going to have to do is obviously add our revision. So in order to do that, we're just going to go to Manage. We're going to go to Additional Settings, Sheet Issues and Revisions. In this instance, I'm just going to relabel this. So we're going to use alphanumeric in this instance. We're going to give it the 27th of the 6th, 2021. So if you're looking at this in 5 years' time, hopefully this is still applicable to you. We're going to say this issued for 8020 BIM, tutorial. We're going to say NK, and we'll leave cloud and tag on. Okay, and we'll press OK. All right. Now, so we've introduced our revision to the project, and now we want to place our revision on all of these various drawing sheets. And again, this model is freely available. Is available from the Buy Me a Coffee support page link below if you need a sample model to go through this. Okay. So let's say we want to print all of these. Okay. What we need to do is apply our sheet revision en masse. And the historic way we apply sheet revisions is we go to the sheet, and then on the properties toolbar, we go to revisions on the sheet, edit, we click that, we press OK, and then we go down through each sheet, okay? But with the PyRevit tools, okay, we can go to revision here, okay? And on the drop down there, we can say set revision on sheets. This will open the first dialog window, and this will prompt for which revision you want to add to sheets. So in this instance, we only have the one revision. So we're going to select the one revision, but you might have a list of hundreds here, and you can just scroll down and select the ones you want. Okay. You can then select revision. Okay. And then you can set the sheets. So you can check all, uncheck all, or toggle all. You can also use your standard selection methods, or you can press Control. You can press Shift to select all in one instance, and then deselect the ones you don't want. And similarly, you can press Control to highlight multiple instances as well. Okay. So in this instance, we're going to make sure that check all is selected. Okay. And we're going to set revision. And you can see that the first thing it does is it prompts with this script. Okay. You get this basically little Python shell script that'll come up, and it'll tell you all the sheet numbers where the revision was automatically applied. And you can see that it was set to all these sheets. Okay. These are all the sheets that are currently in this model, and it'll actually give you a warning to any sheets that for any reason it didn't apply this to. So in this instance, I can't show it to you because there's no warning, there's no issue, everything's worked fine. 99 times out of 100, you're going to have all your sheets populate as you can. It's only if something's a little bit broken in the revisioning part of the model data that I've ever seen this fail on a single sheet. It tends to work pretty much every time. Okay. So as you can see, we have issued for 8020 BIM tutorial, and I can go to another generic sheet there, and you can see that it says issued for 8020 BIM tutorial. So you can see that that's been applied en masse. Okay. So that was how I choose to leverage the PyRevit add-in to automatically apply the revisions to all sheets. Okay. So now we're going to go into how we can export all this data to PDFs and maintain the drawing number and name and revision in the title without manually having to go and change any of that information. So here we are back at our title page here, okay? And what we want to do now is to automate the PDF and DWG exports, as well as the other file types I mentioned at the start, such as IFC and NFC, NWC, Navisworks Cache, and all these files, okay? So there's a great number of files we can do this with, and what this tool, what the DiRoots ProSheets tool allows us to do is automatically name these elements while exporting, so that we don't have to come back manually and change all that data, okay? So go into the DiRoots toolbar, the add-in bar, okay, and pressing ProSheets. What you can do is you can wait a moment, okay? If you have a large file, it might take a moment for all these sheets to populate, particularly if you have a lot of 3D view data with various shadow types, ambient shadows in particular. That will tax the processing of ProSheets. It might take a moment or two if you've got a lot of drawings that are very graphically heavy, okay? And what you're greeted with is this very neat interface. Now, there are other tools that can do this. ProSheets is not the only tool that does it. The reason I gravitate towards ProSheet is because they have a very well thought out interface that's very user accessible. And as the BIM lead in my organization, I prefer to give people things that are aesthetically more, let's say, appeasing, so that they don't become overwhelmed with new workflows. And this looks like it ties directly into the Revit interface. You know, that kind of way it just looks like embedded, other than the feedback and donation buttons and the custom software. So we have our selection of sheets here, but we can also select any views in the model if we wish. We can filter those views if we wish by the view type. So we can go to 3D if we wish there, or we can go back to our all views. In this instance, we want to only select sheets, but we could also select a view or sheet set. So if we had an established print set already, we can decide that there. We can say this is the sheet set that we want to create, and it'll automatically select the elements that we want, or it'll bring about just the sheets in that set so that we can select them. Okay, much the same as previously. We can press Shift, click first and the last to select all instances. We can press Control to deselect any instances that we want, or failing that, we can just go up to this little toggle here and we can click that. And that will highlight all the sheets that we want to export with the automatic file naming, okay? So we haven't actually established, though, what the criteria are for the file naming to take place, okay? So as you can see, the custom drawing number here on the right-hand side, we can dictate the orientation if we want. We can say by discipline, we can do whatever, okay? But the custom drawing number here has to be established by us as a user, okay? And if you're the BIM lead or BIM coordinator, or you're just generally the BIM dog's body, as tends to be the case until you're grandfathered into the role of seniority, you can establish custom drawing numbers for both your standard outputs, but if you have any client-specific outputs that you need to meet, you can actually create a custom drawing number and save the profile of that drawing number so that other users after you can utilize it, okay? So in this instance, I'm just going to close DiRoots there for a moment, and you can see that we have our title block down here, okay, the 8020 BIM standard title block. And when I select that title block and I go into it, you can see that we have different parameters, okay? So we have project number, and that's a project-wide parameter, but we also have these sheet instance parameters, which are the company, the volume, the level, the file type. And if you recognize this pattern, it's because this is actually the BS 1192 2007 drawing standard, drawing number and convention, okay? There's also the PAS 1192 2013 part 2, as well as the ISO 19650 numbering conventions, as with their relevant international or nationalized annexes. So for example, there's an Irish annex of the ISO 19650 naming convention, okay? So once you have your naming convention embedded into the sheet title block as the parameters, you can tell DiRoots to select those parameters in order to automatically name your sheet, okay? So in this instance, going back to, sorry, I've lost it there, ProSheets, given the moment to process the sheets again, I'm going to select all my sheets, okay? And then on the custom drawing number here, I'm going to select edit, okay? And what this will do is this will bring up all the sheet parameters available, and you can toggle on or off the project information parameters, okay? In this instance, I want them on because I want to be able to select the project number, okay? So scrolling down, I have to go and select the project number. Okay, and then our next is company, or the originator code as it's called in the standards, all right? Then after that, I believe we have volume. to dictate the volume of the project. So a volume is like a spatial requirement in the BS 1192 standard. And then the level, so the level that the drawing is pertinent to. Then after that, we're going to pick the file type, I think. So it's sheet type here. No, I think, give me a second. File type, apologies. And then we're going to set our discipline. So in this instance, it's a structural model. So we've got S for our structural discipline. And then we're going to select our sheet number, which is 6101, 201, 202, and so on, depending on obviously the sheet numbering code that you're using and the number of sheets that you select. So it's 6101 in this instance, but that will vary depending on the sheet, as will all the sheet instance type parameters. Okay. And then I don't think I added that number, so I didn't add sheet number. Okay. And then after that, we're going to select the sheet name. Apologies. Just making sure that that is in fact the client name, project name. Yeah, so the sheet name, that's exactly what we want. So that's the instance parameter that dictates the sheet name. And finally, we're going to set current revision, okay, which is the rev A that we've already established, okay? And we're going to set that, okay? And you can see that we have a field separator option, and we can tick that on or off. And in this instance, I've chosen to use a hyphen. You can use underscores. It depends on your standard. The one thing you cannot have with the DiRoots tool is the let's say the manual control of the field separator in each instance. We do have custom fields, okay, and custom separators, and we can introduce a custom separator if we wish. I'd recommend to try standardize your output to avoid custom separators where possible, as long as they're in line with your compliance. For our use case here, we're just going to use the hyphen because that's in line with the standard we're working to. Okay, so I'm going to press OK. And you can see there straight away, it's telling me what's going to happen on the outputs, okay? So we have our 8020 BIM, V1, ZZ, DOR, and so on, okay? So with that then, I'm going to press next, okay? And what this does then is it opens up the different formats that we can use, okay? And this is what I was saying at the start. We have PDF, DWG, which is the CAD export. We have DGN, which is another variant of the CAD export. We have DWF and DWFX, which is particularly useful for markup functionality if people are using design review, both internally and externally. We have our Navisworks cache, we have our IFC exports, and we have our image export options. And what we can do is we can mass select all of these and use the same naming criteria that we've established in the selection, okay? But as I alluded to beforehand, with the profile there, we can add this profile now, okay? So you can see that I've no profile established yet, okay? And we can select add profile. So I can select this, okay? And we can say copy from current settings, and we can call this BS 1192 2007, okay? And I can press create. And we can save that to our desktop, and it's an XML file. An XML file is kind of an instruction file for Revit that I can draw down. Another example of where Revit uses XML files is for the likes of the standard keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to actually learn more about standard keyboard shortcuts and custom keyboard shortcuts, more importantly, go to the I card there in the Revit video, in the YouTube corner of the video, sorry, and you will be directed towards the keyboard shortcut video that I did in terms of how to create and manage custom keyboard shortcuts. Some of the ones I recommend, and there's a couple of free resources included in that, so you can get a free cheat sheet and that kind of thing, okay? So I can save this XML anyway, press save, and you can see then that's picked that profile. But let's say again, our client had a specific requirement that we needed to export to, we could manage that specific requirement. Or if we had other requirements such as the PAS 1192 compliance, or more importantly and more recently, the ISO compliance, we can just select our profile. This profile can also obviously be saved into a central location for other members of your team to freely access, so they don't have to go through the same setup process, okay? So I'm just going to press next here. I'm going to select our PDF. I'm going to ensure that it's zoomed to 100%, not fit to page, because that can actually change the scaling. Okay, it's centered. We want vector processing. We don't need to worry about our raster quality because we're using vector processing. We want to create separate files, and you can see our standard options here. You'll notice that this whole criteria that's listed here matches the print criteria properties that you use in a standard plot going through the Control P or the file print menu. Okay, so it's the same output as you would otherwise have, except it's just going direct to your PDF and it's automatically naming it for you. Similarly, we can go to our DWG, we can pick our export standard if we wish, and we can export views on sheet as external references if we want or not. In this instance, I'm going to choose no because I don't want 600 drawings. Similar, we can go to DGN, do the same. We can go to our DWF, and more importantly, on our DWFX exports, we can select our paper size that we wish. We can pick our image formats, and those that are using design review instead of Bluebeam or something like that. So when you export to PDFs, you can have someone mark up the PDFs via Bluebeam, via Foxit, all these other kind of PDF writable tools, let's say. But if you want to reintegrate that information into your live environment, be it CAD or Revit or another Autodesk-based drafting environment, if you go to DWFX, someone can use design review, make all those comments, but you can actually load those comments directly in over your environment to make the changes, which is just a very streamlined workflow. So you can do that automatically again from here. And again, you can zoom to 100% to make sure the scaling is right. Similarly, you can go to NWC for your Navisworks cache exports. You can go to your IFC if you wish, and you can select, let's say, your Kobe 2.4 design deliverable. Now, we all know that Revit still has issues with the IFC export qualities. So, that's not DiRoots' issue if it's not meeting the criteria dictated by the IFC standards, but it is more of a Revit centric issue. So don't blame the add-in, let's say, for that. Or again, we can go to image if we wish, so we can do standard image outputs. So in this instance, I'm just going to turn off everything, but I'm just going to leave the PDF and DWG exports. Okay, I'm going to press next then, okay, because they're all established. And you can see that we've got basically twice the number of drawings that were visible. But you can see that the format is actually alternating. So we have our PDF, DWG, PDF, DWG. And the more formats that we selected, the more they will group and the longer this list will become. We can select the final location of our thing. So I'm going to select the Filenames folder here. Okay. I'm going to press OK. And then we can, again, mass select or singly select the sheets that we have to finally tell DiRoots this is what you're exporting. Okay. So we're going to press all and we're going to press create. And then we're going to kind of sit around and twiddle our thumbs a bit. All right. Because it's going to take a moment for this to process. So if you're doing maybe 100 sheets, it might be a good opportunity to go and get a coffee. But just remember that this is not wasted time or wasted energy or things being slow. This is saving you a vast amount of time in terms of manually exporting the same data, or more importantly, having to rename it and cross-check and cross-reference all the information to make sure it's correct. Once the information on your sheet is correct, you know that the information being exported is correct. So you can do all your checks in the Revit environment prior to exporting, then use the methodology described here, and you're off to the races. Okay, so I'm going to quickly pause this and come back to you in a moment. I was hoping it would actually, I'd be able to spiel on for long enough, but it doesn't appear to be. So I'll be back in one moment with this complete. And we're back. As soon as I cancelled that, it basically just auto-completed the rest of it. So I think maybe my recording was slowing things down a bit as well. So you can see the file extractions have been completed here, and it can open the folder to check the drawings. Okay, so we can minimize that window, and I can go to my desktop and open that folder. Okay, and I think it was this one here. Okay, and as you can see, we have this whole battery of drawings now that have been exported with the names intact. Okay, so I can go to my name here, so I can go by type, and you can see that we have the same number of CAD and PDF exports. So for example, I can open that drawing that we had witnessed there. So there's one drawing, for example, or we can go to our 3D views, let's say. Okay, and you can see that we have our full title there at the top saying, 8020 BIM, 8020-BIM-V1-CZ, so on and so on and so on. Okay, so this is picked up on all the criteria. If that criteria looks inconsistent to you, I may have missed one or two of the things in the rush of kind of doing a tutorial, but you can take a bit more time. Okay, but you can see that that's automatically named then. Okay, you can also see at the end that you've got the full name of the sheet name, let's say, and then a -A, and that -A stands for Rev A. So you could have put let's say a custom separator there where you would say Rev_A, or Rev underscore, and and it would be blank, and then it would infill the A if you wanted to actually put in the description. But for this instance, it was perfectly fine. You can also see that the CAD has followed suit, and I can open the CAD of the same, zoom extents, because Revit always does this weird blow up, and you can see that, albeit very, very confused from the layering convention perspective, in terms of the presentation of the layers in the let's say pre-printing, you can see it's the exact same output that was actually created for the PDF. Okay, so there's the PDF. So that's essentially my workflow for automating both the drawing revisioning en masse, so placing the revisions on my drawings en masse, and then exporting them with their full file numbers and names and revisions intact. And I can tell you that this has saved me an awful lot of time across the last couple of years, and I thoroughly recommend that you toy with it, you test with it. There's other methods of doing this. It doesn't have to be the PyRevit DiRoots variants that I've had here. There are other tools that are available. These are free. I quite like the companies or the individual, in the case of PyRevit, who are creating them. They're very value-centric individuals or organizations, and I think that I just want to support them and put them out there. Okay. So, as always, all resources either mentioned or shown on screen here are available down below. The model is available for purchase down below if you wish to actually avail of it, or just to generally go in and have a browse of a structural model in some shape. This is actually from an existing building, so you know that it exists and it's not just a generic kind of tutorial model pulled out of the air. So this is actually something that is validated and still standing. So this is freely available. Please join the Discord community down below. We'd love to have you. Again, it's an open discourse. It's completely free to everyone to join. You can come and ask your questions and help out others and just be part of a Revit and BIM echo chamber so that you can kind of develop yourself as much as possible and help others in the meantime. As always, thanks for watching. Appreciate the support to date. It's been great. It's really getting a lot of traction over and Buy Me a Coffee and the Discord page as well. It's lovely to see people kind of, coming around the topic and helping each other out. Big shout out to both PyRevit and DiRoots and their creators. They're very hardworking individuals by the looks of it, and I've benefited massively for their efforts. So make sure you support them as well should you go down this route and want to avail of this workflow. So, as always, I'm Niall, this 80/20 BIM. Hope you got value from this. Let me know if you have any comments or any preferred route that you'd like to undertake this exact exercise below. I'd love to hear it. Always open to new ideas and new strategies and new ways of becoming efficient, because that's what BIM is all about. We don't want to quite become redundant, but we want a lot of our energies to be better directed, let's say, and tools like this really help us. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye-bye.